yesterday we were kind of having this argument, I think off air, of daylight savings time. And I was like, I seem to remember it has something to do with farmers. Okay, they have too much, they need more sunlight. Or I can't remember. And I'm like, if it's farmers, I'm sure it's farmers. And so I got to check this out. Because if it's about farming, I'm for it.
And it's a good stance.
Good stance.
That's how we get a giant $500 billion farm bill every year.
Right.
Is it about farming? Then I'm for
I'm
it.
for it. So here is the. So I said to you yesterday, I'll do my homework.
Yeah.
Let me look into where it started.
I'm very interested in where we landed on this.
Not going to believe. Okay. So if you start looking in all the dark corners of human history, you find a man named Benjamin Franklin.
Well, that's not a dark horse. He's my favorite founder.
Right. Founding father, inventor, lover of lightning, lover of libraries.
Yeah, yes.
Pretty good guy.
Pretty good
right?
guy. I love
him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in Paris. And in 1784, he writes. Now, remember in America, he wrote an op-ed under a pseudonym, a nom de plume. And it was all just comedy, basically. He was just ripping things apart comedically, okay? Well, he does this in the Journal de Paris. And he writes this letter because he thinks the Parisians are lazy. Now, who would have thought that?
Where did that come from? Jeez.
I don't know how things have changed, huh? So he said, I've got an idea. First of all, I can save you a fortune on candles. And candles, if you woke up a little earlier, you wouldn't need the candle at night because you'd be tired and you'd go to bed. So in this, he said, and we should tax shutters. Because if you don't have a shutter, the light would come in and you'd wake up and you'd go to work. Okay. And if that doesn't work, we should fire cannons at sunrise. Get out of bed. Okay, so he's writing this about basically making fun of the French for being lazy and laying in bed. Okay, he didn't mean it, but a seed had been planted. So now you have to go 100 years to the future. Another guy who becomes very serious about the clocks is George Vernon Hudson. He's an entomologist in New Zealand. Okay, and he's like, Benjamin Franklin was right. Why? Because this guy collected butterflies after his job, and it got dark too early.
For his butterfly collection.
For his butterfly collecting.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. This is insane. So he stirs up a big deal. He's like, we've got to drop our clocks back. But he didn't say an hour. He said like 20 minutes. Set it back 20 minutes. 20 minutes? What are you talking? You know how screwed up everything would be if we set our clock? I'm going to set them back 16 and a half minutes.
Imagine that. Jeez. We can't handle the most basic of tasks.
I know. Okay.
Imagine that.
All right. So he's doing this because, again, he's collecting insects. All right. 1895 is when he did that. It didn't come back again until William Willett in 1907. He was a wealthy Englishman. He said, just like Benjamin Franklin, except he was sincere about it, nobody's working anymore. Why can't? Now, you got to remember, this is a wealthy Englishman. So he's like, why aren't my workers out on the plantation early in the morning? I should be woken up by the sound of hard work. So he says, this is a waste. And he writes a pamphlet, A Waste of Daylight. He also suggests we only turn the clocks back 20 minutes. All right. So he lobbied Parliament. Nobody listened to him. Okay. 1916, the beginning of the Great War. All across Europe, countries are desperate to do what? What do they fight? What are they doing? They're fighting, right? Mm-hmm. If you're fighting, what do you need? Don't think daylight. What do you need?
Night.
No. No, forget the time.
Okay.
What is valuable? What's valuable is armaments. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and how do you make armaments back then? Coal.
Okay.
So they want the light to last as long at night as possible. So the coal plants are taking all the coal instead of giving it to people for energy in their houses so they can turn on all their lights. They can make armaments. So they have a shortage of fuel, of coal. All right.
That was a winding road. I would not have gotten there on my own.
This is why I did this dusty work yesterday.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Suddenly, Germany is like, hey, wait a minute. Remember that guy Germany did this, not England. Germany said, remember that guy who was in Parliament who said that you should set the clock back? And they're like, yeah, 20 minutes. And so a German said, how about a full hour? Would that save things? April 30th, 1916, Germany was nothing good comes from Germany. Well, I'm sorry. Really good desserts. Really good desserts. Other than that, nothing good. Well, okay. BMWs are pretty nice. Mercedes, pretty nice. But other than that, nothing comes out of Germany that is good.
Aren't you German?
There's a few exceptions. Okay. So all across Europe, the war is raging. Germany sets their clocks back so they can have the daylight, so they're not wasting coal. And England is like, hey, wait a minute. 6 weeks later, England joins in. Then Europe joins in. Everybody's doing this for the war effort. Then Wilson comes in, and he does it as well in the United States. So the first time it ever happened was under Woodrow Wilson. I could end the story there, and that explains why I'm now not for daylight savings time. I could end it there. So after Wilson, because of the progressives, this is so amazing. Think about this in history. The progressives in 1919 became very unpopular because Woodrow Wilson had had a stroke his last year in office, was absolutely incapable of running anything in the White House. He wasn't in charge. His wife was. Does any of this sound familiar? And he had taken America and pushed it into socialism. And we had lost freedom. And it scared the American people because at that time they knew the Constitution. And it had happened in 8 years, and they're like, we got to get away from this. And so they reversed it. And all the things he did, they reversed, including daylight savings time. And then World War II happened. And FDR came in. And he called it wartime. And he did it for the same reason, to save on coal, save energy. So to conserve resources again, we put in wartime, and then we never let it go. So 70 countries now still observe daylight savings time. That's a third of the world. Across Europe, the clocks spring forward, fall back like clockwork, pun intended. Over in Europe, it's called summertime. In North America, United States, Canada, and Mexico, we're still dancing to this tune, except Mexico is starting to opt out. Parts of Australia and New Zealand still observe it. But in Asia, Africa, and most of South America, they've been like, these guys are stupid. What are you doing? They're like, yeah, that's not a really, we don't have candles anymore or coal. So, I think we're pretty good with this, and it messes with our bodies. And doctors show that the time change increases heart attacks, strokes, car accidents, and grumpiness. The one thing it's on a Saturday, and you're like, oh, I missed church. Gosh darn it, I didn't set my clock. Now that's not a very good. That's not a good reason to be against it. Wilson is. Your kids miss buses. Anyway, so that is what happened. Now, if Donald Trump comes in and says, we're getting rid of daylight savings time, that means The sun in Boston will come up at 4:07 a.m. Like 4:11 in Minneapolis. Around the same in Seattle. That is significant. 4:20, I think, in Los Angeles. But it's still light until 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night. I'm pretty cool with that. I don't like it when, the problem is, in the winter, it gets dark so early. You kind of like, I don't need it to be darker, at 3 in the afternoon. I went to, where was that? Copenhagen, I think. I was doing a deal on, I was in Sweden, and I was doing a deal on the Muslim uprisings over there. This is years ago. And like the sun rises at like 9:30, 9:45 and goes down at 3, 2:45, and it never gets past like the sunset. It's never above like 20 degrees horizon. And so it just kind of circles the edge. It always looks like dawn or dusk. I think I'd kill myself. I don't care how good the chocolate is or whatever. I think the Swiss Miss would be fashioning a rope for me really quickly. Oh my gosh, I don't think I could handle it. So anyway, that's the story. Donald Trump, right again.
He is right.
Anything that goes
on this one.
Anything that goes against Woodrow Wilson and FDR, I fully 100% back.